welcome to the Discipleship for the Decades podcast. I'm Jeremy, one of the co-hosts with Karis. Hello.
Good morning.
And we are here with our special guest today, Heath Burchett. Welcome, Heath. So glad to have you. Founder, CEO, president, whatever letters we can put in front of him as the watchman of the streets, president, CEO. So is that right? I don't know. What's the official title?
Chairman of the board.
It sounds, more glamorous than, thanks for trying to pump me up and stuff. Yeah.
So,
doing what I do.
A lot of you folks who know us, who are have tuned in, probably know Heath or recognize Heath. But this is like your kind of first opportunity to get.
I just heard about Heath really since I got here. You got to come do Watchmen. Oh, you got to meet Heath. So I told him I'm super excited to hear his story and to hear what God's doing with Watchmen. And I was in my sermon yesterday. I was sharing a little bit of my past with those experiencing homeless and poverty and working at a coffee house for that kind of folks and building relationships, which sounds like what you do, plus more.
So what is your connection to Bethel? And then how did that help launch Watchmen of the Streets, for those who may not know what that story is?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here.
No, absolutely.
It's a privilege to be here. And, Bethel's dear to my heart. Obviously, I was on staff here for 4.5 years as the youth pastor or family director of whatever I was, but I work with youth like Jeremy. So anyway, 4.5 great years. And the neat thing and the connection with Watchmen and Bethel is that Watchmen, this whole ministry that's really taken off, has launched through Bethel. So, there's no unconnecting Bethel with Watchmen of the Streets outreach for the homeless. And so when I was the youth pastor here, I used to live in Belize, and so I kind of came off the mission field, and I love missions. I have a heart for missions, and there's this part of me that was always kind of like, when I came back to the States from being off the missions field, is like, well, I just don't see the poverty that I saw there, and you felt like you're meeting this great need every day, living among the poor and all of that, and so at the same time, I love, just helping people to grow in their faith and working with teenagers. I did some of that over there and sharing the word of God, even though, sometimes that scared me half to death, Yep. But anyway, so I came back and started thinking about, okay, well, I want some of those moments that I had over here, and I want the teenagers to really get a hold and have a missional heart. And so during the summer, we did, I think it was like just about every week, but we had certain days that we did missions. So we would go and do, and I know you've done missions, Jeremy, and near and dear to your heart. So we helped refugees, and we went to prayer rooms, and one of the things that we did was work with the homeless. And so we went to this place at the time that was called the Free Store, downtown Charlotte. And the youth led the worship. They did the breakfast, and they were just kind of dispersed and having conversation with some of our homeless neighbors in Charlotte. And so I tried to engage them in things that would touch and bless my life. Things that would enrich me. Yeah. And then if I just did that, it also enriched their lives. So, they had an awesome time, and they were really, truly touched and, in tears and stuff. And then so was I. So out of that, I became really good friends with one of the guys at the Free Store at the time. And so we exchanged phone numbers. And outside of the youth group, I had taken him out to lunch, and we just kind of connected. And then I took him back to his house, which his house was a tent. And he had one of the nicest tent camps I've ever seen. It was immaculate. he didn't, quote, look like he was homeless. There's always that stereotype. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was dressed really, really nice, nicer than me. And he had his shirt tail tucked in and everything. He had everything nicely organized. His camp looked like it was a campground. He would rake things, and he had floral arrangements and all kinds of stuff. Wow. But, he still had needs. He had lost his home. He was taking care of his mother, and his mother had passed. At one point, he was a CNA at the hospital. Next thing he's out living in the woods. Yeah. He was very, very educated and had a lot going for him. And then through that, I just started giving him some of the resources and helping him in different ways. And then I told some others about my relationship with him. And then he introduced me to some of his homeless friends and showed me where they lived. And I had no idea that this hidden community even existed. Yep. Because this is back in 2013. This is when this really all took place. Within, with Bethel and having the youth group involved and stuff. And so, so I started seeing other people in need that had way greater needs and stuff. And so people want to start donating and giving us items to hand out. And we were kind of skeptical to go into the woods and go into some of these places. And we didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't have a lot of people that actually wanted to go at the time. And the things have drastically changed now, as to where it feels safe. And we really have that relationship with those that we serve. So since we had a nonprofit since 2009, even though I was on staff here, and we were still doing things in the country of Belize, our board voted that we could make our mission worldwide, and also help the homeless here. Yeah. And so that way people could get tax write-offs and stuff like that. More people started joining, and I started developing more relationships with people that were way hidden back in the woods. And really, that's how it all started. It's a really cool thing to see how things have expanded into so many different areas, and more people are getting involved and being blessed on both sides. Yep. Those that we serve and those that go and serve. And so, this whole thing it launched through taking some kids to do some missions work, here at Bethel. And watch out if you're doing missions anywhere, and be careful, if you're on a church staff and you get too involved in missions, because you might leave, But
So Watchmen, a lot of people go, okay, I know that I can give tents and I can give sleeping bags and I can give canned foods, and that Heath's going to go pass them out. But it goes much deeper than just giving some. But that need is crucial. So can you explain that need of simple, basic living, right? Somebody needs a tent, I'm going to give it, but it's not just about that. It's about much more.
Right. Yeah. People definitely, now the needs increased like quadrupled since 2013. I remember things in the newspaper, the Charlotte Observer, saying we're going to end chronic homelessness by like 2016, 2017. And now it's gotten worse than it ever has. So it's not hidden anymore. There was just 200 people that were put up in a hotel or a motel, and many motels and stuff are going up because of COVID, and people have lost jobs, and you just see tents all over the side of the interstate. They're not even hidden anymore. And so the need is greatly increased. People need things to live with, just the elements out in the weather, whether it's going to be heat. It's going to be mosquitoes and floods. We've already had flooding, and it was cold weather at one point. And so people just need survival items that can't get into housing, or the shelters are full, or they choose not to go. Whatever it is, new people are becoming homeless all the time, and so people need basic necessities. They need things like a sleeping bag, a tent. Canned goods, even though there's places you can go get meals, sometimes, especially the people that don't live in community, because there's communities and then there's people that live way out by themselves because they don't want to live in a community. They don't feel safe that way. And so there's a variety of needs with cook stoves and bug spray, and I mean, the list goes on and on. Hygiene. I mean, anything that you need for survival. And so people really do need this. And we've been in situations where people could have literally frozen to death with hardly anything to keep them warm, no place, crying just to get a sleeping bag and a pillow. And, in Charlotte and our surrounding area. I mean, it's unheard of. A lot of people wouldn't think that we have that much need, but there's a lot of people suffering on the streets, and so it's really good to be able to go and to provide those needs. But the main thing is to answer your question a little bit quicker, is that it opens the door also for relationships, and I think that's one of the most powerful things for us is. We can continue to give you things that you need, but those relationships turn out to be the most powerful thing. Not only for us, for them and for us, but once those relationships are built, then all of a sudden, okay, whatever the person that you meet's name is, Frank, or let's just throw out a name, then all of a sudden that. You care about Frank, and when it's hot and when it's freezing outside, you think about Frank, and you have a responsibility, and you want him to be okay, and then it's that way for every person that you meet. And then not only that is we build this trust and this relationship with people, and so the supplies, yes, they meet a physical need, but and that's very needed. But then it opens the door for those relationships, and then those relationships comes resources and people trusting to want more and better for their lives. So once someone starts believing in them and starts instilling hope in them, beautiful things happen. And we don't know who's going to come volunteer from week to week with us. And the cool thing is we've been out and someone will say, I need a job, I need med care, I'm sick, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden there'll be somebody that God strategically placed on the team and will say, well, I can help you with that, or I can make a phone call for you. And people are getting hooked up. And, and some of those things, they don't cost anything, and it's like, wow, if we came together as a community and we all pulled together our resources, that people would have so much help, Yeah. And so it's just a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a story, one that sticks out just of transformation, something that you go, okay, this was a direct result of God's work in this person and in this ministry, and I don't know. I know you didn't. Yeah. I didn't prep you for that one, but
no, that's good. I'm used to it. So, narrowing it down, is kind of difficult. But several stories. One was just on the news about a couple that we have been servicing since 2013. So they were homeless in a tent for a long time. He has leukemia, and they've been in an apartment for about 3.5 years. So I think it was through the Shelter Care Plus program that they were able to get housing. And we worked with Urban Ministries, which is now a Roof Above. We were able to make that connection with them, to start that relationship in the process. And then finally, they had gotten approved, and so they moved in. And then, it's hard. Even once you get approved for like some government assistance or housing or whatever, that transition after you've been chronically homeless or homeless for so long, and getting back on your feet and paying bills. And so even when there's a place provided for free, then what are you going to do? There are other organizations, but there's a lot of red tape and stuff. And then really, people need a life coach to continue with them as they go off the streets. You can't just throw somebody in an apartment or a condo and say, okay, you're good now. Yep. It doesn't work like that. And so we were so happy for our friends, and then what happened is they're in their place for 2 weeks without. They're just on the floor. Yeah, they don't have any furniture. They need everything. Yep. And then all that stuff was supposed to come through some resources, that they had applied for, and it didn't. And so we put out a plea on Facebook, and they started getting all kinds of cool stuff. And then we took it to their house and delivered it all, and they had a whole house full of stuff.
Yep.
And again, that's not anything that cost us any money. It's just community coming together to provide TVs and kitchen supplies and things like that. And so. They're definitely a success story because they've been able to stay and maintain in the same place for quite some time. A lot of times we see people that get housing, and as soon as they get housing, they're back on the street before you know it because there's something didn't work out, or there was a violation of some type or whatever. But they've really done well. And then they had the hardship of getting around and transportation, even though they had a place. Yep. That's the next struggle. And then we had a donor that donated a car. And so Watchman was able to deliver the car to them and just take them to get their license and stuff like that. And it's much needed because he was walking. My friend with leukemia, he was walking to his chemo an hour and a half and then feeling like he wants to crawl back home. And so they have transportation, they have some disability coming in, and I mean things are looking up for him. There's another guy that when we first met, his name is Eric. He was on one of our videos, and he was like, Watchman of the Street saved my life. Well, no, we didn't. I don't say we did. God did. And his decision, his response to what was offered, that's his will and all of that. I mean, all of that played a role. But he said, I got to go to church now. I got a job now. And all of this stuff. He attributes to Watchman. But really, what it was is we just met him when he had nothing, and he was down on his luck, and he was, not. He was just laid up in the woods, with a lot of need and just a lot of hurt and a lot of things going on in his life. And we just kept going back to him, and developing that relationship with him and encouraging him and stuff. And then finally he ended up getting sober and going into a program. And then the next thing I know, he's got one of his old jobs back, but he didn't come back as a worker. He was actually given a management position. Oh. And then so he got a company truck, and then he ended up getting a place, and then he ended up getting married, and then he ended up going back and helping others on the streets and taking them out to lunch and stuff. I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's the success story that you just go, okay, not only did they achieve, but then there's this heart transformation of they know where they've been, and so they want to impart, hey, I want to give you hope. I want you to, that hope can keep breeding, right? It can reproduce.
Well, and the relationship piece is what it struck me because when I saw the news story about the couple that you posted on Facebook recently, my very first time out at Watchman, I remember going to visit them early on.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I remembered them, right? I had that small but somewhat remembered relationship, right? And I go, this is so cool to see that story of where they were and what I remember it looking like compared to where they are now. And that's what people, we can be God sightings for people. And that's a word that we use around here at Bethel a lot. And it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just a connection or a relationship. What's it like for people to be that God sighting, or what's it like for you to be that God sighting for some of our homeless neighbors that are out there when you go out every other week? Down in Charlotte.
So that's a really interesting question because I guess I don't really think about myself being a God sighting. It's like this sounds pretty awesome, right? But I guess in some ways
you're too humble.
I guess in some ways you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you have Christ in you, and that's the God sighting. You know, that's what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Of course, they've seen other sides of me too, but anyway, it feels good, because we have those relationships to where literally they feel like Watchman is a part of their family, and we feel like we have a street family. You know, they're friends on the streets. The only thing is we have a house, and they don't have a house. You know, but we have a lot of things in common too. You know, we share a lot of the same hurts and fears and all of that kind of stuff. And so when we yell out "Watchman of the streets" in the middle of the night, and people smile and "Watchman," you know, and then they come out and they give us big hugs and stuff. You know, it feels good. You know, they know they're loved. They know they're cared for. You know, some people may not ask for prayer, want prayer, but others won't let us leave without praying for them, you know? And so just to be able to, oh, wow, I needed that, and I needed this too, you know, and the items too. I mean, it's a wonderful and a beautiful thing. So just being able to meet those needs and stuff, you can see where people might see Watchmen and or yourself as a God sighting to them. You know, it's a blessing from God. You know, you are a blessing from God as you go and you serve. But then, you know, we see God in our homeless neighbors all the time.
How many times do you get prayed for? Does the team get prayed for by one of the homeless neighbors?
That happens a lot.
Yeah,
that happens a lot. And a lot of our homeless neighbors, they don't just say, "Okay, let me say a prayer for you." I mean, they're passionate. They mean it. And they get, you know, they get into their prayer for us. And so you can tell it's sincere and heartfelt. And that blesses us so much. And again, we learn how to be more grateful. We learn how to be more thankful. They're going through all these hardships, and yet they're like, but I thank God for the breath that I breathe. I thank God for another day. You know, I know that my God is watching after me. And you're thinking, man, I just complained about this or that or my struggles, you know, and like, wow, you know, but so it's cool because we end up getting blessed. You know, we end up getting purpose. They get a need met. We get a need met, you know, so we see God in them, they see God in us. We're having this God sighting, but the real God sighting happens when our worlds collide and community is built, and then all of a sudden, that's the God sighting because that's what the body of Christ should look like. Yep. That is the body of Christ, you know, and there's too much separation between and us and them, you know, and that could go for anything, not just homeless or not homeless or whatever. So anyway, yeah, I mean, God's all over the ministry and the outreach and the whole, shouldn't even say the concept, just the reality of community and people's lives coming together from all different places. You know, we even have, you know, whether it's business, the business person or someone that, you know, people from different denominations and churches and people that don't even go to church that go out and help us like for humanitarian reasons. And they just care about legit our homeless neighbors. Yeah. And to see them even get emotional and get closer to God through, you know, it's not always us going to share the love of Christ and to necessarily convert someone else, you know, but it's also people going out with us that are really getting touched and blessed.
Yeah. Well, it is easy to fill up our time. We're kind of coming to a close. How has Watchmen directly impact your walk with Christ? Like this ministry that you've birthed and getting to go out and help the homeless neighbors. Where have you seen a direct impact on your walk or of some of the people that come to help their kind of walk?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You know, that's, I mean, it's life-changing. And that's really encouraging for me to hear. First of all, it's life-changing to me. I do it. There's nothing else I'd rather do. It's a passion of mine. And I believe that God definitely has a heart for the poor and the needy, and that he blesses those that also help those in need. And then the people that would never had thought that they would ever get involved in homeless ministry, or they felt uncomfortable with it. has radically changed their lives. And now they have friends that are experiencing homeless, and they have stories that have changed their lives. And to hear their testimonies of whatever it did in their life, it drew them closer to God in many ways. They expanded their prayer life because they might not have ever prayed for anybody before. And then now they have the opportunity to do so. The list goes on, And so I think that we're always learning and growing and getting blessed, and God is always doing something new in our lives as we go out, and we're missional. We're fleshing our faith out and doing what God's called us to do. Yeah. If that even answered the question.
No, I don't know.
Well, that ties directly into a lot of what we're talking about in the next several weeks with moving. Let's get moving.
Let's Get Moving is our new sermon series. So
nice.
A great way to get moving would be to go on a bi-weekly Watchman outing in Charlotte. Move your legs, help some homeless neighbors.
When do you go, Heath? What do these people? What do folks need to know?
Yeah, so the first and third Tuesday of every single month in Charlotte at Mission Gathering Church, which is East 15th Street in Charlotte. At 5:45 p.m. Anybody can just show up and be a part of it. And then also every second Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Aldi parking lot in Statesville. People can come out and serve in Statesville. And then you can always just go on the Facebook page or go into the text program or whatever, and there's opportunities to serve in other places like Hickory and stuff, or even in Winston-Salem with my dad, so yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, if you guys are like, hey, I can donate some physical items, Bethel's always a good drop-off location. We can always get those things to Heath. We'll also link in the show description the website for Watchmen, which would have a donate button there if you want to help that way as well. So it's just great to have you on, Heath.
Yeah, thank you.
We've been trying to work this out for a few weeks. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So thanks for joining us for this episode of Discipleship for the Decades. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.